All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Nomad Strength Show. We have an awesome podcast with you. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Nomad Strength Show. Got an awesome conversation today. Brandon Horoho of Montana Knife Company is joining me today, and I've known Brandon for a few years, and we were chatting at Winter Strong a couple months back, and we talked about wanting to get on a pod together and go over some stuff that we don't usually talk about on this show anyways, because, you know, I'm a business owner, so I've had guys that are on that are other business owners, but I really wanted to get some perspectives on from Brandon about marketing specific things, growing a brand, because what they've done at Montana Knife Company for the last 3+ years it's seriously amazing. Like, I don't even understand the level of work that goes into what they do to make this company explode like it has, and it's been really awesome to see. And so I really wanted to get Brandon's perspective on a lot of that stuff. What kind of things are they doing day in and day out, week in and week out, to grow that company and help make it explode and bring back, like he says, bring back American-made manufacturing and reestablish what a lot of us perceive as, you know, the American dream of starting a business and having it take off and be successful. And so we were really able to get into a lot of that fun stuff today, talking about business, talking about marketing, principles of marketing. So if you're a business owner at all, or have a side hustle that you're trying to make a business, or you're really just wanting to get into the business world of things, this podcast is going to help. There's a lot of really good advice that Brandon has after spending a couple of decades in the marketing realm of things and growing through the social media age, how to approach things now. It's just a really valuable podcast that we did today. And so I'm excited for you guys to hear it. So make sure you go and check out MontanaKnifeCompany.com. They have weekly drops every Thursday for all their different knife models. They have all kinds of new ones coming out as we talk about in this episode. And I'm really excited for you guys to get this and hopefully go pick up one of their awesome knives, because they are killer. So before we hop in, I want to make sure you guys go check out SellwayArcheryProducts.com. Drew Kohlhofer and the family has everybody really locked in. If you're a traditional archer, slide on, strap on, bow quivers, rawhide, plastic hood, all kinds of stuff. So go check them out and support the people that support this show and the other show, Peace, Love, and Meat. And that'll do it. Let's hop into this show with Brandon Horoho. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Nomad Strength Show. I've got my guy Brandon from Montana Knife Company joining me today, and I'm really pumped because there's a lot of things that me and him can kind of get into that, or maybe even a little bit different than a lot of the other shows that we've done, which is part of the reason I wanted to have you on. So first of all, man, thank you for making time. I'm pumped to chat for a little bit with you today.
Oh, dude, Ross, thank you for having me. I'm super stoked.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And what's really cool is you guys are just coming off, I kind of made the joke again, like you said, the biggest night ever in Montana Knife Company history last night with the culinary knife big release that you guys did. And I made the joke, like, dude, every week is your guys' biggest week ever. It's awesome how just every single time you guys do a drop, it's the biggest one ever.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's we're in a really cool phase of our company. You know, I've been in the back end of a ton of companies between the agency I owned and then all, like, my previous, you know, employers and stuff like that. I've never seen anything like what is happening here. And it's just insane too, because it's, you know, we're also doing it in one of the oldest industries in the world, sharp things. Like, it's probably the first tool ever invented. You know, and we're doing it the old school way, 100% American made, manufactured downstairs by a dude that you can go have a beer with. Yeah. Which is just insane. So, but it just makes, like, it's wild what's happening in the style that we're doing it. And because, like, right now, like, you know, you just hear like, oh, this AI company blasts off, or this crypto company, or this, you know, it's all these companies, but it's just like, it's not like they're real companies, but this is like a true American classic company. Like, talk about the American dream, bootstrapping, like, so like I said, I'm riding a little high and a little bit of lack of sleep after this past week, you know, because my you know, the manufacturing team crushed it, and then also to the marketing team. I mean, we literally worked probably 10 days straight leading up until you know, last night at 7:00. So
that's awesome. So what do you, let's just start here. What do you think it is about what you guys are doing that is like you said, it's one of the oldest professions, one of the oldest crafts that there is, like blacksmithing and the making of tools out of iron and steel and all this stuff. Like, so why
Right.
now is something like what you guys are doing exploding the way that it is in light of all of these like all these newer types of companies, like a lot of tech stuff and all this stuff? Like, what do you think it is about this that's making it blow up right now?
You know what? Like that's a great question, and
Yeah.
I think there's a couple different angles of why MKC is so successful. Obviously the first thing is like the company started with a rich history. You have Josh's history of him becoming a knife, start making knives at age 11, master bladesmith at age 19, becoming one of the top world master bladesmiths, all through his 20s and 30s. So there's a lot of rich history. So we're building the company off of a true like expert versus like
Sure.
a boardroom.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like this didn't start with a boardroom and an idea and profitability. It was like, no, we could probably go out and make the best knife possible. So like that's where it started. But the true success is, honestly, in this industry, in the hunting industry, in the knife industry, in the American made industry, there was a hole, there was a void, where everyone was trying to either race to the bottom of the barrel, make the cheapest disposable, cheapest, even though if it wasn't a disposable blade, it's a blade so cheap that it's not even worth resharpening.
Sure.
And people literally stopped caring about their knives. Like really in the early teens and 2000s, like we started to lose the heritage of what a really good knife was. So us bringing that back, that's one pillar of why I think the company is so successful. The other part too is like, a lot of these companies are built for wholesale. And a lot of these companies, like all they care about is, either blade show which isn't a bad thing, or like SHOT Show.
Sure.
They're just there to place big POs with, big box firms. But the problem is that you're giving up 40-50% of your margin.
Yeah.
And then then it's really easy to get orders, but then you also have to start chipping away at your product. And then you start trying to worry about the margin of the product and you're trying to make it cheaper. And that's one thing we've never done is like, we have always tried to make the best knife possible, give the best guarantee possible. So, if you bought a blade, you were gifted a blade, you stole a blade, you found a blade, it doesn't matter. If it has the MKC logo on it, you can send it back and we will completely clean it up, resharpen it, send it back almost brand new. So like that's another pillar. And then the other big thing is just the amount of energy that we are putting out like into the world right now is just insane. Like I have never seen it with any company that I've ever worked with. The amount of content we're putting out, the amount of just cool shit that is worth emailing our customers, worth texting, worth posting about. That's the one piece that a lot of people forget. They're, especially in my world and like the marketing world, like I'm so deep in the marketing trenches that like, everyone's looking for the next quick buck. Like how can they make as much money with as little effort as possible? Like what happens if you just put out 20 times the effort, expecting two times the result? Like that's pretty much like what we're doing.
Volume
right now.
shooting, dude.
Yeah, exactly. So, and like, I'm actually really glad to do this podcast because I came from, the supplement world and then went into fitness apparel. So all my analogies are usually like fitness based.
Beautiful.
That's the only, because marketing and business is, it's just like strength, man. When you really come down to the core, it's boring. It's all about just time under tension and just consistency. So
it's awesome. Go ahead.
No, go.
I was just going to say what's cool about how you said just doing 20 times more effort and putting that work in, especially in the industry that you guys are in, as it relates to something like social media, where you guys are almost in spite of all of the junk that you have to deal with social media, shadow bans and all that stuff because of what type of company you are. You guys put so much stuff out content wise. That's awesome. Still quality content that like you're not getting around it necessarily, but you're probably a little bit softer than what some other guys that don't post as much, just because there's so much out there. It's like they can't shadow ban everything, unless they just shut your account down. You know what I mean? And so like you guys kind of have found a way to still get a lot of your message out, still put cool things out there in light of all the things going against you especially when it relates to social media.
Yeah. And I appreciate that, and that's like the biggest thing is like everyone, it's so funny when people start complaining about being shadow banned and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I mean, like we bring it up because we want to make it apparent that like, the media is literally holding us back. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
Especially the big tech companies and stuff like that. I've had meetings with at Google ethics boards, all that stuff. They still want to roll anything hunting specific into a dangerous weapon.
Sure.
Even though a chef knife, I would rather fight someone with a chef. I would rather not fight someone with a chef knife,
Right. Yeah.
than like any of our hunting knives. Like our chef knives are way more deadly than any knife that we make. But a chef knife, we can happily promote all over the place because you're cutting meat on a cutting board instead of cutting meat off the bone in the field. But the problem is, it's just that's just the nature of the business. And, it's kind of like one of those limitations that I just have to live with. You can't fight it, like you could do your best, but it's just, and that's the other thing too, is like a lot of people don't realize is like, we're still a hunting knife company.
Sure.
Only 2% of the country has a hunting tag. Like the population that we're actually catering to and marketing to and care about is super small. So I think, once we start breaking out into more like traditional knives, like a folder or a pocket knife, stuff like that, I think that's when it's going to start to get like really crazy. But it kind of keeps me up at night, but I'm also really excited about it.
That's awesome. I want to now go back in time a little bit with you specifically and how your brain around marketing and all of this stuff sort of came up, because you mentioned like, you were in supplement world for a long time and then got into fitness stuff. Like you've been a part of doing marketing stuff for companies forever. So like, what was it about those early days that sort of formed how you realized what works, what doesn't, how I need to approach this in an industry that's not what you came up in,
Right. So, I mean, I'll probably even, I've been getting asked this question a lot. And trying to figure out like, what is it about? Because like marketing is all psychology. At the end of the day, it's all psychology. And, so like I like even taking it back to like middle school and high school, it's weird. It's like, I've always wanted to be a graphic designer in the marketing sales world. Like for some reason, I've always just wanted to be in this space, in the admin space. And, I was actually talking to Casey Bard about this, because, we're both Western PA boys and like, and we're trying to figure out like what makes us so good at marketing, like, or the idea of marketing and like how, like, cause there's certain times like you talk to some marketers and like, you just, I hate to say it, but you just don't get it. It's just like talking, and like, you're just missing like the core fundamental value of like driving someone to want to buy something, and I think it starts off as, when I was a younger kid, I would never call my family or, say we were poor, but we were definitely, we weren't crazy well off. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. So I think I spent a lot of time convincing my friends that my old rusty 1993 Jeep Cherokee was way cooler than their brand new 2001 like Mustang. I was like, yeah, you got 2001 Mustang. It's brand new. That's cool. I'm glad your dad bought that. But like, can you jump it? And does it have Rockford Small Gate 12s in the back? And like, but this got character and heritage. And like, yours is like, it's all plastic. But just having that notion of like, how could you make something just way cooler than what it is? Like, I think that's the underground like roots of it. But then like, to answer your question is, my real early days, I was in the culinary space. So we're, that doesn't equate as much. But then once I got into the supplement space, that's the big one because, we had the limitations, and this was early, 2010, 2011, FDA regulations were everywhere. We're insane. We're cracking down. It wasn't the Wild West of the 90s and the early 2000s. Yeah. I mean, I literally would have to sit in FTC, FDA courses of like learning what I can say, what I cannot say, how I can mention certain things. And, it's even way stricter than like the knife world because like, at least I get to say what this product does. Right. It's sharp as hell and it cuts. Yeah. It's easy to sharpen it. There was a point where I couldn't even say the word perfect in the supplement industry. No kidding. Perfect implied, I had to strip that from the website. I couldn't say like, this is the perfect, formula for, aiding in, recovery. Interesting. Yeah. So, so I had to learn how to really work literally with handcuffs on. Yeah. Obviously, doing the supplement space, you couldn't run Facebook ads, Google ads, all that stuff's like super banned. So you had to really lean into community. You really had to lean into street cred. You really had to lean into like honestly going really, really old school. Like think about it, if like Instagram and Facebook wasn't around, like how would you market this? How
Yeah.
could you just build a big enough community that just it might not blast off immediately, but like once you have one person that tells three friends, and then those three friends tell three more friends, and then
Yeah.
that compounding, growth, it starts to add up.
Yeah.
It's a slow burn, but if you stay consistent, it just crushes. But yeah, I think that was a little bit longer than
No,
you're
that was
looking
perfect
for,
because I was actually going to lead right into my next question, which was you started in this sort of weird transition time before, like while social media was starting, but before it really became like the main medium for advertising and marketing and stuff for everybody. So you have some experience like in the world before that, and like the lessons that were applied, like it's all like you said with, we're going to make probably a dozen different fitness analogies, but there are fundamental principles of what makes a marketing, campaign successful that doesn't necessarily matter what medium you're using it for. So as you got into like more of the social media stuff and realizing what that was capable of, how did that change how you guys, obviously changed how you approached some marketing stuff with the medium, but conceptually, what else did that allow you guys to do that you couldn't do before?
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, it literally was night and day. I remember one week sitting down at dinner in Dallas with like American Advertising, which was like one of the largest magazine publications in the world. I think they do like Flex magazine and Muscular Development and like all the old, bodybuilding magazines that we would buy at the bookstore as a kid, and all that stuff. And I remember like the owner just sitting down and being like, "How big of a company do you want to have?" He's like, "I own 90% of all the fitness advertising." So he's like, it's literally like, how big of a company do you want to be? You just pretty much pay to play at that point.
Sure.
And literally, like, I remember having that meeting, and it wasn't that far off. Then like, Facebook started to take off really to the point where like it went from just like college inside jokes, with your friends to like, because there was a point where, Casey and I worked together at USP Labs, like we were literally building people profiles for our company.
Yeah.
Like, which is insane, like, so we were advertising on Facebook before there was actually a Facebook page or company pages.
Oh, crazy.
Because I remember when like the pages started popping up and we were allowed to merge our public profile into a page. But what, the biggest thing is that like we were able to control the media. We were able to control who saw what versus having to pay to play with the magazines and the advertisers. And, the biggest thing is like we got to like, instead of trying to fish, try to catch a customer with one line, like we started to build a net, and that net was able to like capture, 30,000 people, 40,000 people, 50,000 people. And then the next step is after like social media is like, and then it's like, how can you start owning that data?
Yeah.
So I got really, really, really good at collecting emails and collecting SMS and collecting, any way to just reach out to that person, because in the supplement space, like I was just waiting for Facebook just to completely delete us at any time, Instagram to delete us at any time. And like, that's how I feel at MKC. Even though we have this insane Instagram page and insane Instagram following, I still act like it's not going to be here tomorrow. And trust me, we've woke up a couple times with our page locked. Our page, completely restricted. I'm like, okay, time to start again. But, but we built the foundation of the company by collecting everyone's email and collecting everyone's text messages and like building that community and having offshoot Facebook pages and like everything. And honestly, too, just our people to people network that if, heaven forbid, if our Instagram page ever disappeared, it wouldn't be the end of the world at all.
And it's cool because I think, anymore when somebody starts a new business in this sort of atmosphere of social media stuff, that's always a piece that is neglected or not taken as seriously, like having the, like you said, owning the data of phone numbers and email addresses for that reason. Right. Like there was a local gym around here. It was a CrossFit gym not too long ago that got sold off. They were, the gym itself wasn't doing too great, but they were around for a while. So they had tons of former members' emails and current, like they had all this data. So that the gym company that ended up buying this older place, they're like, the gym itself isn't necessarily profitable, but you guys have like 1,000 email addresses of people in a 2-mile vicinity of this gym. Like that is what we're paying for. Essentially, like that is the super valuable part of a lot of this transaction, because we have that direct connection to people already, like day one. So it's, and then in this, in the scenario, like you said, where, I don't imagine that it would happen, but crazier things have happened. I guess you could wake up and everything's gone on Instagram or whatever, for whatever reason they decide to change things. And it's like, okay, that sucks, but we're not dead in the water at that point, because we still can reach all of our customers whenever we want. We have their phone numbers. We can text them when we have drops. We can like email them directly. Like nobody owns that except for us. So like that is, I think, a huge thing that a lot of people don't necessarily pay as much attention to, especially like in a product space, like where it's a physical product. Like that's a huge deal. I think if it's a coaching deal, like what I do, it's a little bit different in some degrees. Like that's still helpful, obviously. But it's really interesting to see how, I get the texts, a couple times a week whenever you guys are getting ready for stuff. And it's like, I always know when you're going to do it, but I anyways, but it's like, I get the text. I'm like, oh, this is the week that they're dropping this one. Sweet. Or whatever. And so like, that's a really cool piece of it. I wanted to ask you too, we talk about some of these fundamentals of marketing that would make somebody running a business have a better view of what they need to do. And I kind of want to take this in a more practical direction. So like, what are some of those things that no matter what type of business you're running, when it comes to putting out messaging, like these are kind of like the few irrefutable laws of how to do this well at a starting level. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's a great question. And there's two things I want to touch base on is, so I want to forget that I don't touch base on both, is like the first one is the accumulative effect of your effort. And then the second one is like really thinking about building a business in reverse. And I'll get back to that one. So the first one is focusing on the accumulative effect. It's like the compounding effort over time. So again, this goes back to like the fitness world and everything like this. You talk to any coach, you talk to any trainer. It's not like it's not that you go in the gym on Friday morning and you deadlift 500 pounds and you're good for the next couple weeks. Like that's how marketers think. I mean, like I literally almost have to smack marketers out of it. Like stop trying to throw Hail Marys and like literally just focus on a first down every single day. Like, cause I'll tell you, like two things happen is when you're focused on just getting 1% better every single day, you're going to have more chances for a Hail Mary to pop off than just trying to throw a Hail Mary every single day. And what I mean by that is like, so many marketers are just like, oh, I wish I could just get on the Joe Rogan show. Oh, I wish I could just go do this. Or like only if this one thing would happen. But it's like, no, just try to get 10 more emails today. Tomorrow, try to get 15 emails. And then like, next week, try to add one more layer of software that helps either retarget your customers, gain new customers. And like that's the biggest thing is just like really like, I tell people to almost like slow down and just try to like really look at what works. And like my team is probably sick of hearing this phrase that I say, but it's predictable success. It's like, if something works, find out how to do it every day. Yeah. And like, and there's no secrets in MKC's marketing that you don't see. That's the thing about marketing is that like, if you don't see it, it didn't work. So if you see it working, that's what's working. So, but the one thing you've noticed about MKC is we're incredibly consistent. We have an apparel drop every Tuesday. We have a knife drop every Thursday. We have a weekend, Saturday vlog that goes out. Like those things never change. Those are the core things, core needle movers. So when it comes to marketing, especially in the fitness world, if you're trying to get like leads, for new coaches, or you're trying to sell a fitness product, or you're trying to get people into your gym, is like, what are the things that you could do every day that move the needle? Focus on those, figure out how to get way better at those every single day. And then once you have those maximized, just try to add another layer of something on
Sure.
top of it. But don't forget about the old stuff. That's the thing, is like, I've seen too many people have like really, really good ideas and they execute it 1 week and then
Yeah.
they don't do it again. They'll just
Yep.
never go back to it. And like, well, why don't you just do that
Yeah.
every
Yeah,
week?
that worked. What are you doing? Yeah.
It worked. It worked. And, and then the other thing is, like, again, like, I'm always trying to give advice of just like more of like how to think versus like, hey, go and
Sure.
do this, because like how you market, trying to sell, a couple thousand knives is different than how you're trying to, get a client that pays $2,000 a month. You know what I mean? Like, those are two different psychologies. But the basic fundamentals are there. And then, the second thing is like, there's, I think, if you're in the marketing world, you've seen posts by like Hormozy and stuff like that. I was listening to one of his podcasts and he asked a question that literally like shook me to the core. And like, I can't stop thinking about it, because like it literally puts you in a place of like, no bullshit, what works for your company. When you ask yourself, if I wanted to destroy Montana Knife Company by pure neglect, or destroy any company by pure neglect. I'm not saying like go out and do something that's a bad PR, but I'm talking about just stop doing one of your fundamentals. And like your goal was to literally shut down your company as fast as possible. Like what would you do? Like what would you turn off? And the first thing that you would say, like, I would turn this off. That's your most important thing to keep it going.
That's a good, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like for us, it would be like, we would stop emailing. So when you start thinking about that, it also cuts out the bullshit. So it's like, I would, the first thing I would do to like, slow MKC down would be like, stop emailing, stop text messaging, stop the custom content, stop community outreach, stop, like all of our like good PR stuff. And like, you start going down that list, you're like, oh, these are all things I can't live with, live without. But then you're like, oh shit, there's like 20 other things I'm doing that I can probably cut. And like, but like in those 20 things that I just didn't mention that are in the top 5, like how much time, how much money, how much effort, how much brain power are you thinking about? So that's the big thing when it comes to marketing. I'm trying to like, to give advice is like, think about those 2 core things, is like, what can you do every day that moves the needle? And then how can you compound that? And then also too, like, make sure you're focusing on the right stuff. Because I think, again, it's just me. I just see people focusing on the wrong stuff all the time.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is probably because, like you said earlier, they don't stick with one of the things long enough to see it through to where it works. And it's, again, another classic training example, like the program hopper, right? Like I'm on a program and I do it for 2.5 weeks and it's like, dude, I'm not shredded yet. I must be on the wrong program. Like I got to go find a new one now. And it's like, if you would have stuck it out for at least, 12 weeks, like you would have seen some result, whether good or bad, to know whether it was actually working or not. Like, and not like sticking it out doesn't always mean it's going to work, but at that point, like, okay, this really doesn't work. We can move on. But most people don't give it remotely close to the same amount of time to actually see if it does or doesn't. One of the things that was really interesting to me as I, in my coaching business, and I still run everything myself, right? Like there's this, and this was something that I struggled with for a long time in the first few years, was making the distinction between myself as the coach and then myself as the business owner. And like, because I was thinking like, I'm the coach, I got to do everything, all my coaching, I got to really pour into this, which I do still, but it's like, none of that matters if nobody knows what I do. You know, like if nobody understands what I even do, or if I'm a coach at all, like my coaching business doesn't serve anybody. So it's like, especially if you're somebody that does stuff, by yourself, or a real small team where you don't have like kind of specialists that do each thing really well. It's like, you got to separate and understand, like, it doesn't matter if I'm the best in the world at a thing. Like if nobody knows what I do, I don't have a business, and it doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah. And that like, it's honestly the true like artist, downfall. Like coaching is an art. I don't, it truly is. And like, some of the best artists in the world are not the best promoters. And that goes for, for any industry and stuff like that. So it is like you have to be just as good at selling as you are at your expertise.
Yeah, definitely.
So as you know, what I always advise is, I mean, that's what, is like, just go read as many salesman books as possible and get used to it.
Yeah.
Because it's awkward. It's hard, especially selling yourself. That's probably, especially, if you do have, you're not completely narcissistic, like selling yourself is actually pretty hard. A lot of people don't like to really do it. They don't like talking about themselves, and like that's the thing. Like Josh likes to say is like, Brandon gets to go talk about me because I don't like to talk about me, and which is good because it's like, I get to talk about Josh, I get to talk about the company, no, I completely hear you there.
I want to talk a little bit about the formation of what you guys started. I mean, I'm aware of the story because I've been around you guys for a handful of years now, and we have, a lot of main similar acquaintances and friends, and a lot of it delves from Winter Strong, which was kind of like the whole genesis of the company. Like you said, Josh has been making knives his entire life, and actually even had the URL Montana Knife Company, has had it for like 25 years, but that wasn't a company until like 3 or something years ago at that Winter Strong. So like, I want to hear that story from your perspective on how all that kind of came to be.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's nuts to think that it's 3 years. I mean, 3 years, three and a half years ago feels like 2 days ago. And then also it feels like 30 years ago. But just like you said, Josh has been making knives for 30 years. He's one of the best master bladesmiths ever. He got invited to Winter Strong 4 years ago by Neil Kanemura, to come help him, do the forging demonstration, and like they said, just what Winter Strong is just like absolutely amazing. It's a place to go and talk to people, and you don't even know who you're talking to. Like you could be randomly talking to an ex-pro, NFL player. You could be talking to one of the biggest coaches in the NFL. You could be talking to a CEO of a multi-9-figure business. And that's the beautiful thing. Or you could just be talking to a random employee of, Sorinex, that has the right connection, which, so Josh went to the first one, and I think he had connection, he was talking to like Ricky and Freeman at the time, and he's telling them about the knife. He's like, hey, I've always wanted to start a mass produce, knife company kind of thing, of like Yeti, but for knives. And I guess, so then Ricky and Freeman knew of me up in Montana, I think, and then they made the two connections, like, oh, you should probably meet up with Brandon, because I was, was working for like Flagler Fell. And then at that, then I started having my own agency. And, one morning I got a random text or DM at like 6 o'clock in the morning from like Josh, like, hey, I'm looking for help, with my, my custom knives, and, also starting this, Montana knife company. I was like, cool, I'll drive down and we'll take some pictures and chat and stuff like that. And, I was in full swing of starting an ad agency and trying to take over the world with that. And then I was like, damn, this thing has legs. There's something to it.
What was that? What was that moment where you clicked? Like, what did you see that you had that realization? Like, oh, this is the thing.
It was a bunch of little things. Obviously, Josh's passion, his background, and then like my marketing agency. I started it 10 years ago, and it was called Makers Creative. I never had to promote it because I had clients, and more clients got other clients, and other clients, just like we were talking about. Like, I never had to run advertising for my own agency. And but the ethos of Makers Creative was, I wanted to be the marketing and creative services to people who make stuff. Honestly, going right back to the conversation you're having, a lot of these amazing makers aren't great promoters, but I knew how to do the promoting part. And that was my goal, was to find all these great American-made makers and just kind of focus on them, and like what they do best, and let me be the, the soundboard for their companies and stuff like that, and help them grow and everything like that. So like I said, like when I met Josh, I saw what he's doing. Like that was exactly like what I was looking for. Again, never expected, Montana Knife Company to turn into what it turned into. And I helped him launch the website. And then in the fall, like he came to me with ownership and all that stuff. And I was like, man, it was a hard decision because I was running this agency, but, and the ownership was big enough where like, no, this is probably going to be your job, in the next year. And, and then, we had our first real launch with the Speedgoats in December. They sold out in like 14 minutes. I was like, okay, that was the first drop, beginner's luck. And then we had another one in January, sold out faster. And then I think we had another one in like March. And then from there, it's just been like sell knives, order enough for the next one. Hopefully it's enough. And we've been just playing catch up, since then.
That's really cool. And the whole concept around what you guys did initially by doing it with these drops, I think was like one of the cooler ways to build I'm not even sure the word I'm trying to think of, like the tension around trying to get one, right? Because like you never knew. I mean, you guys don't ever really post like how many you have available. Like you just say like, this is our drop. And then like, I remember like those a year and a half ago or whatever, I remember one of the knives was like, I was on the thing and it was before everybody figured out the game of how to get them. Because then there was like everybody tried to like, they figured out the way to get it, right? Like, cause you'd hop on, it was like buying concert tickets at some point. Like you try to get on, it's like, I'm clicking, I'm clicking go to the next phase and click submit, and it's like, sorry, they're gone. I'm like, I've been on here for 40 seconds. How are all these gone already? But doing it that way, I think allowed you guys to build, like what you said, that community around it, because it was like, dude, these are selling out crazy. What is the deal with these things? And it kind of created that want to be a part of like, oh, I got to make sure I'm on here at freaking 6:58 with the cart loaded. Like, and then everybody's like, you got to buy something already. So you already have your account created in the thing. And it was like just this whole like crazy every week trying to buy sold out concert tickets. And so I think like, instead of throwing everything up there and then having like, we have all this stuff in the shop or whatever, go check it out. Like that really, I think did a lot to drive the explosive growth of a lot of the stuff.
Right. And the wild thing is too, it's like, everyone's like, oh, it's the scarcity model. Like everyone's doing it. Like all this stuff is like, it's not the scarcity model. We're making them downstairs. Tristan and Melissa and Aiden and Braden and like all the people downstairs are making these. It's not like, hey, I just didn't order enough from China.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if we were a sneaker company, it's like, no, it's not like I just didn't have enough money to order enough. Like, what we drop every Thursday night is what the team finishes from the Friday morning before until literally Thursday.
That's what I was going to ask. Is it literally what happens in that week, or you guys have like a few weeks out and you kind of get overlapped, or it's literally like whatever comes out that week is what goes?
You know, like for like a little bit there, like we were getting like a week or two ahead of our drops, but I mean, literally we were finishing the chef's knives this week, packaging them. Like, I mean, literally there's times that we're getting the final numbers an hour before they drop. And like, it's cool. Like, I don't ever want to change it, but like, that's the thing is like, people are like, why don't you just make more? We're like, we're trying to make more. We went from 12 employees to 55 employees. Man. It's not like that we don't want to make more. And that's the biggest thing is like, when we started the drop model, like obviously I got that from the apparel world and like the fitness world, like that's really big. And the idea wasn't, it wasn't to build this scarcity and hype. It was just like, I didn't like the idea of pre-orders, and that's like in the knife industry, it's really big for pre-orders to have a big pre-order list. And then you get to go to the bank and you're saying like, oh, look, I have a pre-order of millions of dollars of people want the knives, and you get easy loans, like all this stuff. And like, I mean, I had to tell big ex CEOs and big business owners, like they're like, start doing pre-orders. I was like, no. I was like, we're not going to take people's money of knives that we can't ship. Because at the beginning, we didn't even know if we were going to get steel for our next order, because we launched in peak COVID, and all the American-made steel just got completely locked up, and just like we were literally buying steel from defunct knife companies and like all this stuff. So it's like we just couldn't take pre-orders. It just wasn't an option for us, and it worked out. But it also like I said, it also, again, it's repeatable success. It gives me a marketing plan to launch this knife, and the goal is to try to sell them all before they're even live, versus most companies put everything live and then they spend the next 6 months trying to sell it.
It was funny. I had I was, and this was probably maybe a year and a half ago or so. It was it was 2 or something years ago. So it was after the first Winter Strong that I went to, and I was telling my dad, I'm like, you got to check these out, like, because he's a big he doesn't hunt, but he's a big fisherman and does all kinds of steelhead fishing and all that kind of stuff out here. And he just, he really likes knives as well, and he wanted to get one. And I'm like, well, go check these guys out. Like they do stuff every Thursday, like, and go get one. And he calls me like the Friday after, and he goes, man, I don't know what I was thinking. He's like, said they were releasing them at 7. He's like, I got on there, I kind of was eating dinner, and I got on, it was like 7:40. I'm like, you were 42 minutes too late to get on at 7:40 to try and get a knife. And he's like, yeah, you should have told me. I didn't realize that was the case. I'm like, yeah, that was my bad.
Yeah, no, it's just nuts. And like the coolest part is like, also what we're doing right now is the blueprint for someone else to go do this in a different industry, in a different niche, in the same style of American manufacturing. Like I have these razors on my desk, and they're from these kids in Bozeman that are manufacturing American made, shaving razors with like replaceable blades. And they're absolutely awesome. And like, I'm like, guys, like, they're like, what's your secrets? Like, I don't have secrets. Just literally do exactly what I do every week. They're like, well, it's easier said than done, but
here's the template. Like, it's just the idea is all like, of this data.
Here's
already.
The template. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it's just cool to kind of see that. And like, hopefully too, like that's the evolution of Montana Knife Company, because our goal is to bring back American manufacturing. And I love finding companies like this and like trying to help them do the same thing that we did. Because like I said, if we can get people off of disposable cheap stuff from Walmart, like, and start caring where all their products are coming from, and like just bring back a little pride in what you have.
What's your favorite one that you guys make?
Favorite knife? Man, it changes. I have a soft spot in my heart for the Blackfoot 2.0, just because like that's our first hard handle knife. Absolutely love that knife. If I had to only take one knife right now and go into the field, I'd probably bring our whitetail. That whitetail knife right now is just awesome. It is just so cool. So, I mean, and you could do everything with that. You could fillet fish. You could obviously cut up, whitetail. You could process a moose with it if you wanted to. And that MagnaCut is so damn sharp.
Yeah, and that was one of the things I was going to ask about, because I know that a lot of the technical stuff around the steel is really technical and cool. But between the MagnaCut and the traditional, I can't remember what it's called, but just like the black steel that you guys use for those other ones. Yeah. What is the difference between those two as it relates to just functionality? Like, is it a big difference between those two things?
Right. So the crazy thing is there really isn't a big difference when it's, I mean, to Josh or like any like
Josh could write probably a book on the differences between the two.
Exactly. There's a lot of difference, but when it comes down to pure usability and like the user experience and all that stuff, obviously the 52100 carbon steel, it's ball bearing steel. It holds an edge forever, but the greatest thing is that you can put an edge back on, like super easy. Like I think it was at one of the Winter Strong, someone sharpened their knife with the edge of their windshield, like their sidecar windshield, that little bit of grit on the glass. Like you could sharpen that knife on anything. I've seen people sharpen on the bottom porcelain mugs, little pack stones. You can get those things that are razor sharp. So our knives are super easy to resharpen. Now, the reason why MagnaCut is so insane is because it has the same properties as carbon, but it's stainless. Gotcha. So the carbon steel, you have to treat like a cast iron pan. You can have that cast iron pan for 10 generations if you use it and put a little oil on it. Same thing with the carbon. That carbon will rust, especially if you get any salt water on it, anything like that. But that MagnaCut, it literally acts just like that carbon steel. It holds an edge just as long. You could put an edge on it just as easy. Our sharpeners downstairs say they can even sharpen them sharper, which I can't even believe that's a thing. But then also too, it's stainless. So, I have a feeling eventually our entire company is probably going to move to MagnaCut. It's just easier to maintain. There's less, things to worry about with the rust. There's less education. Obviously the look of the black knives is very signature. We'll probably Cerakote them, things like that on the road. And we've done that for some special drops, but both steels are absolutely amazing. I would take either or in the field without even batting an eye. Doesn't matter. I mean, like the usability and how easy they are to resharpen are almost equal.
That's really cool. And I'm curious too, and that kind of leads me into some of the stuff I wanted to ask. Like, I know you guys are always, because I remember when I had Josh on probably like 2 years ago now, pretty early on with
Yeah.
everything. He was already working on the fillet and the chef's knives and stuff. So I know like you guys are always things in
Mhm.
your head of stuff that's not around yet. But like how many I mean, is there a point to where you're like, this is our stable of stuff, or are you guys always like, what other thing can we make now?
The crazy part is that our team actually has every single Thursday night drop laid out into 2026.
It's crazy.
We have 15 new models dropping this year.
15.
That are
Oh
brand
my gosh.
15 brand new models in the culinary, in the bird space, and then like also too we've been hitting, but like we are going to be getting into the
Yeah.
military space, so a little bit on the self defense side, and they're just so I mean, there's
Yeah.
no slowing down. I mean, like we're just going to keep on reinventing and finding. Our goal isn't to be, like we always say, like our slogan is first blood to last bite. The goal isn't to go out and become the biggest knife company in
Mhm.
the world. Like our goal isn't to be on wedding registries, but our goal is to go find a certain person that believes in America, believes in American manufacturing, doesn't mind paying for
Mhm.
quality, with knowing that the company is going to back it with a guarantee. And my goal is to go and replace every knife that's in their ecosystem with a Montana Knife Company knife. So we have stuff from processing and from field dressing to processing in your garage to your culinary knives in your kitchen, and then hopefully soon we'll actually have steak knives for your
Oh,
dinner table.
nice.
So we'll have the whole first blood to last bite. Maybe even get into broadheads
Oh,
down the road,
now
but we'll
you're
see.
talking.
We're a
Now
long
you're
way down the
talking.
road, and we still
Uh, that's aw-
have for true first
Yes,
blood to
that's
last bite.
awesome. With the
Yeah,
and that actually brings up a point too. I'm with you guys being primarily like you do all of these other types of things, but like you said from the beginning, we're a hunting brand, like a hunting world brand, and all this stuff. The
right,
hunting space of social media is always really interesting to me, just in general of how things are portrayed, I guess you could say, well or
right.
not well. But with something that's a tool like you guys, you're probably a little bit in a different place with it. But how have you guys experienced the hunting industry as a whole, being receptive or not, or like just how things get pushed on social media, where if you're like a hunt, like trying to get hunting knives in the guise of these influencers to like get better word out, or you guys
Right.
going, like I know you guys do a lot of the kind of grassroots model, but like how do you approach it within that industry that's
Mhm.
kind of its own world of things, I guess you could say?
Right, right. Honestly, like just like true
Yeah.
authenticity. Like, I mean, that's the only way to put. I mean, like the hunting space is probably the most authentic place possible, because like you really think about it, there's no like hunting
Yeah.
enthusiasts. There's not hunting
Yeah.
fans. Like the fitness world has fans of sports and fans of and like you got the whole like athleisure
Right.
world out there that you can kind of like, and that's the same thing with the military space, is like there's making eyes for actual like bad dudes downrange and like that are doing things that no
Yeah.
one will ever know. And but then there's also the whole kind of like shot show world of people that are just like
Right.
military fans. The hunting space doesn't have that. It's either you're a
Yeah.
hunter or not. And like it's crazy, like there really is a line in the sand, like you're not a hunting
Right.
fan.
Yeah, that's really
You know
interesting.
what
I've
I
never
mean?
thought of
Like
it that way
it's kind of
before.
wild. Right, right. And you're either going to be doing some, like you might not be, you might aspire to become a big game hunter and you only hunt bird,
Hmm.
waterfowl and whitetail or something like that. But like, so the hunting space is super authentic. And the thing is like everyone that was in our space in the knife world,
Yeah.
they weren't hunters. They weren't like, all the other companies are not owned
Yeah.
by hunters. They're owned by boardrooms and then hunting is a subcategory of their
Yeah.
outdoor space from the months of September to December. And then on January 1st, it goes back to
Yeah.
pocket knives and it goes back to, EDC drops and it goes back to this. And they forget the color orange and camo for the
Yeah.
next 9 months. Um, Us, like we're a hunting company first. There's no question about it. We're a hunting knife company and we're going to start making other knives. But our core roots are always going to be in hunting space. And honestly, just the fact of having that notion that, both Josh and I are big hunters. Obviously we have all of our fucking game hanging on our walls. Like, we're unapologetic about it. We completely back all the right conservation groups. We're constantly giving back. We're constantly hunting. We're sending people on hunts. We're trying to get the youth to learn how to hunt. We're trying to get people to teach your kids to hunt. And then all those, like you said, like all the hunt influencers and ambassadors, in this space, they see it. They see like, oh, these are the real deal, And our goal too is like, all the deals that we've done with all these big guys is like, they've been very, very fruitful because like, instead of us giving 40% to Cabela's, we would rather give a much better, payout to these dudes that are growing the sport and growing the industry. And like I said, it's when you do the right thing, it's crazy how good things happen. If that makes sense.
Shocker, right? Like groundbreaking revelation here on how to run a business properly. Just do it well and be honest. Like, yeah, it's great. Exactly. That's great, dude. So you specifically, now that we're in the hunting conversation, what are do you have a story of like, what is your favorite hunt that you've been on that you like? It's so hard to do that a lot with guys that are like, how do you pick a favorite? But like one that you look back on and you're like, this was awesome.
Right. That's such a hard, I mean, like, I just got back from a grizzly bear hunt up in Alaska, and like when it comes to like, and I didn't even kill anything, but adventure wise, it was 10 out of 10. Riding around snowmobiles, super cubs, all that stuff. I mean, but honestly, my most memorable hunts are usually the ones like that are like other people are involved in. And there's like there's some form of community. Like, I've been blessed to get invited on all the hunts that Nosler hosts down in Texas. And those Texas hunts are like absolutely insane. And then, I think about just a couple of my first hunts ever with my father-in-law. He's the one who taught me how to hunt big game and got me into hunting and like taking the horses out. And, even though I was like killing spikes, I still remember every moment of that hunt and just like absolutely love it. I'm really about like who's on the hunt and how big is the adventure, and then like, am I going someplace new? Am I learning something new? And I'll never say like I'm not a trophy hunter, because goddamn, I love killing big animals. There's no question about it. But the most memorable hunts are usually the ones where it's not the big animal. It's everything that goes around it. And then, there's times, you went to Alaska, like, a couple years ago, went to Alaska and it was absolutely growling and it sucked. But I remember what of it.
Dude, I love that. And I know I've told this story on here, I don't know, probably a dozen times, but it's one of my favorite analogies that I think it was, I can't remember who it was. I'm sure it was Ranella that said it on an episode of Meteor one time, where he's talking about like what we look back on as the best times. And he goes, when you look back at a time you like went to Disneyland or whatever, and you're on a roller coaster, like in the moment, that is probably the most fun thing you've ever done while you're on it. But he's like, but 10 years later, it's like, we had fun trip. Like, I don't look back at that one roller coaster ride as the greatest thing ever. But he goes, but if you're on a hunt and it's not just necessarily hunting, but he goes, but you're on a hunt and like it's snowing and it's dark and everybody's feet are cold and you're hiking through the spot and you're falling down because it's slick and it's like just the most miserable experience ever. And you're ticked off the whole time. He's like, but then 10 years later, you look back at that and you're like, that was the most fun freaking hunt I've ever been on, dude. And like, I have like a few of those exact same stories, like coming down off a ridge we thought was the one we were supposed to go down and we didn't. And we ended up coming off this bank and it's like 3 feet of snow and we're going through deadfall the entire way back to the truck. It took us like 3 hours longer than it should have. We get back, it's like 1 o'clock. Both of us are just pissed off. We're going home, like we're done, like get out of this place. And then we joke about it now. We're like, dude, that was so freaking fun, like climbing down the mountain in the middle of the night. Like there's stuff like that I'm like, that's how we end up looking back on all of these things years later. So I totally get it.
Right.
What about ones that are your like dream hunt that you haven't been on yet and would like to make happen?
Oh man. I really like snow for some reason. I mean, obviously I grew up as a big snowboarder as a kid and stuff like that. So like, I really like those cold winter hunts. I know a lot of people are kind of opposite, but like, I would love to try to find a way where it's kind of a mix of a hunt and like backcountry skiing, skinning into a really super remote location, and like going after a certain species that's like super tough, like tough to get to. Like that's, I haven't pinpointed that hunt down exactly yet, or like how to do it, but there's been thrown around some ideas of like how to do a really cool hunt like that.
What do you have a favorite like species to hunt? I mean, you just came back from a bear hunt, and everybody, and this is my first year getting into, into bears, and everybody that I know that hunts says once you start hunting bears, that's all you ever want to do again. So it's like, is that similar for you, or do you have another one that you'd put at the top?
No. Bear hunting is absolutely amazing. I definitely got, and it's so true. I got the bug, a couple years ago, and just like it's something to do in the spring, and then you started like thinking about it a little bit more in the fall, and But I mean, like my favorite thing is mule deer, hands down, mule deer. Out in eastern Montana.
So many whitetail guys I talk to, I'm like, like I love it, I get it, but mule deer.
I love chasing, people call them big dumb deer, but like, they're some of the smartest animals, and there's just something just so classic about them. And they're like, and you get a lot of meat off them. Like it's, that's the best part too, is like you actually get, a nice freezer full if you get a big old muley too. I remember the first time I killed my first whitetail in Montana, I went and picked it up from the meat packer. I was like, "Where's the rest of it?" I was like, I'm used to taking it up a big Yeti cooler, and this thing showed up in like, a freaking shoebox. I was like, "Oh man!" I was like, "Yeah, I got to think about that."
Awesome. There was a buddy of mine. I think you guys are all familiar with Austin Legg. We talked about it. We've talked about it a lot, and he said, he's like, you can be looking at a ridge line or a mountainside, and you can stare at it for 10 hours and not see anything. Like you've scoped every single inch of that thing. You've glassed it for all day long. You don't see anything, and you're about to give up. And he goes, and then with 30 minutes left of daylight, a giant buck will just stand up, walk, and like sprint down to the bottom to drink, come back up, and you're like, I've looked at that spot for 6 straight hours and there was nothing there. Like, how do you even, and they're so just isolated on their own all the time, like throughout the day. Like, it is, from a challenge perspective, I love it just because they're just so cool looking. I just love how cool mule deer look. And I'm totally in the mule deer. And out west, I'm sure you guys get it too, with all of our friends and connections back east and in the south or whatever. Everybody, when I ask like, what's your dream hunt? Everybody's like, oh, I got to come out west and hunt elk. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's awesome. They're giant and they make a lot of noise and you can get into them and it's awesome. But it's like, I don't know. There's just something about mule deer. I'm like, those are the ones that like, I have an itch for them all the time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And like, I really think back, like I've never not shot a mule deer, in the past like 10 years of like hunting. It's just because like that's the one hunt I refused to, like I missed Thanksgiving last year. I legit was packing out a mule deer. I was like, I'm going out for, a couple hours. And obviously I think I shot one right at like 5:30. Dinner was at 6. And I just remember in reaching my wife and being like, hey,
save me a plate.
Yep. Like I said, I'll never that's one hunt I'll never skip. There's seasons I'll skip, but that's one hunt. Like if I ever had to eat a mule deer tag, it's just because I didn't try hard enough. And that's, it's more on me than anything.
Well, we're coming up on an hour here. I want to get one last thing in here for you guys. Sweet. I know you've got all of these future things. Like you said, you've got the next 2 years planned of drops. What's the next one that you are like really pumped about? You don't have to like divulge a new knife or whatever if you want to keep some of that secret. I get it. But like, what's one of the ones coming up that you guys are like really pumped about?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we have a drop coming out next week. I don't know when this is airing. It's called the Traditions Drop, but it's the first time we're using like organic wood on one of our knives. So we're dropping 4 knives with hardwood handles, absolutely gorgeous. Just stoked about that because that's bringing us to a part of the custom world that we haven't we've never done. But the knives I'm most excited for this year are hands down our military and tactical knives, just because like I'm excited to see where those knives go. I love seeing, our Blackfoots in Africa, and like I've seen our speed goats in Antarctica, and I've seen, over in Asia, and like I've seen these knives, but like I'm super excited to see where these new tactical knives go, because I know they're going to go all over the world with some of the baddest dudes there are, and like that makes me like really, really, That's really cool. Excited to start getting those like cell phone pics from like overseas and stuff really like cool. That.
And I'll tell you where my head went just now. It's like it's probably going to be a different. the pictures you get from those are different than dudes going out and taking an animal and cleaning up with it. Like different thing altogether. That uses for those ones. That's awesome though, man. Well, dude, I loved having you on today. I really appreciate you making time. And MontanaKnifeCompany.com. There's drops every Thursday. If you have any other links or stuff like you want to make sure everybody that's listening finds out, like go ahead and do all those plugs right now, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I mean, the biggest thing is just following us, Montana Knife Company, on Instagram and like Facebook, wherever you guys are at, especially on YouTube too. We put out a lot of content on YouTube. But just visit the website, check things out. Our stuff is expensive. Like we're not going to, beat around the bush, but like, if you can support by, purchasing a hat, a t-shirt, stickers, like hoodie. That's just huge. But look, hoodies, those extra heavy hoodies are awesome. Yeah. But I mean, like that's the biggest thing. Just come check it out. See if you relate with the brand. Yeah. Stay a while. It's the biggest thing. Is like that's the whole thing. Is like our job is community. Like we want you here and hanging around the brand and being part of all the exciting stuff that we're doing. It's more than just trying to sell you a knife. Like we're trying to literally build a community. And again, like we're selling you something that we're responsible for until you pass it down to your kids and your kids into your grandkids and all that stuff too. So again, this is like, we're trying to get rid of that one and done transaction feel that most of these companies have. It's like, you're here. We're going to take care of that knife. You send it back. We'll send it back the next day.
And you guys have, if somebody's like isn't aware of you guys and you're going there, you guys have a couple of models that we talked about all the Thursday drops and stuff, but you guys have a couple that are available more frequently, or at least attempting to be. I know sometimes those even get low on stock too, but you guys have a couple that are available more frequently than just the Thursday drop still, correct?
Right. So our goal is to keep like we have like six of our classic models that we're trying to pretty much like anytime the downstairs has time outside the drop to work, they're literally building these knives, and we're not dropping them. Like they get put on the website. As well, Blackfoot, Speed Goats, Stone Walls, Bear Tooths, and all those knives are absolutely amazing. It's just the Thursday nights are just newer models. So we're still getting the same, cutability. It'd just be a different shape, a different profile, a different use case. But yeah, just keep an eye out. The best thing you could do is just sign up for emails, text messages. Trust me, if you sign up for one of those, you will definitely know when things are available or not.
Well, Brandon, I appreciate you making time today, man. It was a lot of fun chatting.
Absolutely, Ross, man. Thank you.